Historic may not be a strong enough word to describe the recent events in Washington, D.C. and its resounding impact on American politics. In a startling scene that flashed across television screens worldwide, pro-Trump insurrectionists stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to stop the nation's elected officials from certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election. An explosion caused by a police munition is seen while supporters of President Trump storm the U.S. Capitol building. Reuters' Leah MillisBut that same day, mere hours before President Trump instigated the most destructive breach of the U.S. Capitol in more than 200 years, Democrats secured unified control of government for the first time in a decade thanks to Democratic victories in both Georgia runoff elections for U.S. Senate seats. And 144 WNBA players proved pivotal to the monumental feat. "I'd like to just go to bed thinking about that tonight," Seattle Storm point guard Sue Bird told Insider Wednesday night. "It's sad that there's been other things to take away from that, because it has been such a historical day, a momentous day, a happy day for the most part, prior to about, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours ago." Senators-elect Jon Ossoff, right, and Reverend Raphael Warnock. AP photo. Brynn AndersonWell. Before the Georgia elections were thrust into the national spotlight, the women of the WNBA backed Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Democrat who, at the time, was far from a frontrunner, in the Peach State's crowded jungle special election. In doing so, they embarked on a precarious battle, attempting to oust Republican Kelly Loeffler, a co-owner of one of their teams, from her U.S. Senate seat. This is the story of David versus Goliath. Dark horses outrunning the thoroughbred. A group of overlooked and underappreciated athletes, the vast majority of whom are black women, versus a white billionaire who wielded her power to suppress their voices. Here's how the women of the WNBA altered the course of American history, as told by two of the masterminds on the inside. The early part of 2020 was an emotionally draining period for many Americans, particularly for people of color. The players of the WNBA, more than 80% of whom are black, were no exception. As George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's deaths sparked a widespread reckoning with race relations and prompted protests, the WNBA's athletes were negotiating the terms under which they'd safely compete in the raging COVID-19 pandemic. A WNBA staffer cleans and sanitizes the ball before gameplay. Julio Aguilar. Getty Images. "We were on Zoom calls non-stop, trying to negotiate